Hello and welcome to Today in the News on Vanguard Live. I am Precious Chukudi. We begin with the front pages of the papers this morning, starting off with Vanguard. Vanguard is leading with 2024 budget. Tinubu seeks National Assembly approval for 27.5 trillion Naira. The writer says declare security, job creation, poverty reduction top priorities. Says students' loan will commence January 2024. Oil price pegged at 77.96 dollar per barrel, production 1.78 mpd, pegs the exchange rate at 750 naira to US dollars. 8.25 trillion naira set aside for debt service. 7.83 trillion naira new borrowing to finance deficits. Appropriation Act takes effect January 1st, 2024. We will ensure it reflects principles of accountability, inclusiveness, and that's coming from Akpabio. Why budgets must improve service delivery development, and that's coming from Abbas. Budget proposal deceitful, suffocating, no mechanism for economic recovery, coming from PDP. And of course, the photo story showing Tinubu lays budget before a National Assembly. And stories below we have on page 19, recapitalization. Nigeria needs bigger banks for $1 trillion economy, and that's coming from NDIC. Supreme Court okays indefinite use of old new banknotes. Federal government begs core members over deplorable NYSC camps. And on page 12 we have will stop IOCs from divesting facilities until, and that's coming from National Assembly. We take a look at the Nation newspaper. The Nation is leading with defense, education, health, top Tinubu's 27.5 trillion Naira budget. The writer says human capital development, poverty reduction, infrastructure are priorities. Pension proposed the wage raise push up deficit to 9.1 trillion Naira. And of course, we have the sectorial allocations and key indices are shown on the Nation newspaper. Stories above, we have Ayodatiwa to preside over Ondo ESCO meeting today. You can see that on page 5. Old new Naira notes remain legal tender indefinitely. 2022 floods cost a $9.12 billion damage, says NBS report. Aviation unit in blame game over flight diversion to Asaba. We take a look at the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian is leading with COP28 summit. Again, Nigeria others negotiate rights to just transition. And we can see an infograph for showing carbon emission per capita by country. And on page 5, fulfill your stance on federalism. Afenifere tells Tinubu 14% Nigerian women experience physical violence. You can see that on page 4. And still on page 4, provide the 535.8 million Naira school feeding details, court orders minister. More teaching hospitals risk a shutdown over exodus of medical professionals. Knox applauds as Tinubu presents a 27.5 trillion Naira budget of renewed hope. We'll take a look at the Punch newspaper. The Punch is leading with 2024 budget. Defense, education, roads get a 6.7 trillion Naira. Federal government eyes a 10.4 trillion Naira tax. The writer says the president targets PPP to finance infrastructure. Plans a huge IGL, fresh loans, assets sale. Tinubu promise 3.75% economic growth. Jobs reliance on loan has reduced, and that's coming from Edu. Norway's Equinor sells 20% stake in Chevron's Agbami field. You can read that on page 20. Robert Skill, Ogun Finance Director in Bullion Van ambush. 25 die in Kwara tank fire. Stories above. Ayodatiwa returns to Ondo, heads EXCO meeting today. Lastly, on the front page of the Punch newspaper, Supreme Court backs CBN Council's old Naira deadline. And that's all we can take on the front pages of the papers. Join us after the break. We'll be right back. Alright, welcome back. If you're just joining me, still today in the news on Vanguard Live, I am Precious Chukudi. And joining me to talk about some of the stories on the front pages of the papers this morning is Mr. Oludare Mayowa, publisher of Global Financial Digest. It's good to have you join me this morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning, Precious, and thanks for having me today.
All right, let's delve in. And of course, we're talking about the president presenting the 27.5 trillion naira 2024 appropriation bill to a joint section of the Senate and House of Representatives yesterday. And, he stressed his plan to grow the economy by a minimum of 3.76% above the world average forecast next year. What are your thoughts on this?
Thank you very much. First of all, 27.5 trillion naira budget for Nigeria is, for me, is very low. If you are targeting $1 trillion economy in 5 years, but looking at our income, our earning, then we could say very high because we are still to borrow 89 trillion to plug the holes to be able to achieve that. And how do we balance that? How do we balance it? For me, for us to drive the economy of 200 something million people, we need to spend at least 40 trillion yearly to achieve what the entire $1 trillion economy. And how do we do that? We need to pay for our earning from oil. Particularly, we are earning less from oil, where other people are earning big time. Oil price has gone up in the last 3 years or so, and yet we could not produce even the quota allocated to us by OPEC. We could not reach 1.8 million. If, for example, if you are producing 1.8 million barrel of crude per day, will be earning more, and probably will have the appetite to borrow money will be reduced. And if you are able to tap into what we have in the solid minerals, for example, tap into agriculture sector, for example, and other sector that could be earning money for us. We have the whole of Africa, the West Africa at our tip, and at the tip of our fingers to supply, to meet, to grow our economy, but we are not matching up to that capacity. And that's why people are seeing 27 trillion as a big deal for Nigeria. And so when you convert in naira, in dollar terms, it amount to little. So but we are not able to do that because we are not earning money. We are not earning money because the government has not developed capacity to harness all the resources we have to generate enough resources to meet our needs. And secondly, about the budget is that more than 2/3 of that money is going to emoluments, stealing by politicians. At the end of the day, we don't have any the little we are putting to development is not enough to raise our economy to the level we aspire for.
All right, I would like you to take a holistic look at the proposed budget. What are your observations? And from what I've seen here, defense gets a 3.25 trillion, education 2.18 trillion, infrastructure 1.3 trillion, health 1.3 trillion, and capital expenditure at 8.7, recurrent spending 9.9 trillion, and so on, debt servicing at 8.25 trillion. What are your observations so far?
Yeah, when you look at the budget for defense, we cannot have less than that, or probably we even need more to fund our various funds. We have trouble in the southeast, trouble in the northwest, northeast, northwest, and all over the country. And our military has drawn too thin in combating this thing. And without security, we cannot boost our agricultural sector. We cannot boost the economy in the sense of it. Without security in the Niger Delta, for example, our country produce below the 1.8 million barrel per day OPEC quota for us, and will be earning less revenue. So spending more money in defense is required to ensure security, peace and security in our country. Again, we have to look at the value for money. Are we spending that money rightly? Are we getting value for the money we are looking for this sector, or the bulk of the money is going to private pocket? This is an area government need to analyze. Then looking at education, what you are spending on education is, if a country want to grow its economy, need to spend more on education particularly. I need to spend on infrastructure where we need power, we need to develop infrastructures around the clock, the energy sector. There have been little investment in the petroleum sector, for example. Government to spend a lot of money in those sectors. So how do we allocate our resources, our new resources, to ensure that we balance our aspiration, our vision, they align with our visions? The major problem we have today is corruption, and the major we have today is because our government is overloaded. We have ministers, close to 450 or ministers manage the economy in the lane period, we have a government that want to live in luxury, buying luxury yacht and more car. We have people that who are not ready to tighten up their belt. We have government officials in the last 2 months. The majority of ministers have been outside this country, traveling all over the place, and this costs money. They go with retinue of aids, and they spend up money in hotels, in transport, in extra code. These are things that are not adding value to the country. So these are the areas we need to really actually look at and audit the system and ensuring that we are getting value for money. It's not the quantum of money being allocated to this sector that matters in the sense of it. It is how we are allocating the resources to meet specific needs in those sectors. These are the things we need to do. And we hope that this government will actually audit the system and ensuring that our resources are allocated in such a way that we get value for money and we're able to get rapid development.
All right. The president also said that Nigeria remains committed to meeting its debt obligations, and there is a projected debt service of 45% from the expected total revenue. What are your thoughts on this?
Again, when you look at the issue of debt, borrowing, like I said, borrowing has not been is not a problem with this country. Is the number one problem we have is that if we are generating more resources, for example, like I said, we need to spend more money. We need to get more money to the system to ensure that we grow our economy, provide jobs for people unemployed out there, to build our infrastructure so that provide power so that can power the economy to be productive. And we need a lot of money in terms of foreign investment, foreign borrowing injection to the system to ensure that we grow rapidly to be able to achieve, to be able to meet the aspiration of the people. These are not the challenge, really. But the problem we have is that most of the borrowing are being spent on luxury by our public officials. Most of the money are not spending and we're not getting value for the money. America is the most indebted country in the world today. But because they have a system that works, it's not a concern because the economy can pay for it. The economy can pay for those debts and they can see what where the monies are going. And that's exactly what we need. We need to borrow more to fund development. We need to borrow more to build railway system across the nation to ease transportation, for example. We need to borrow more to invest in power so that we can have 24 at least 20 hours per day of electricity across the country. Right? We have a good roads. We have so that food can come from Italy to where they are needed. And most of the bulk of the food produced in this country, they are wasting away because they cannot transfer them to Lagos to where they are needed. And we need to do something about this so that in the area of transportation, in the area of rural development and the rest. We need to generate employment for people in terms of technology to build our universities to the extent that they can train people that will work, that will drive the growth we desire. These are the things we need. But are we getting value for money? And these are the areas the government need to focus on to ensure that whatever we are borrowing, we are getting value for this money. We have had stories of diversions of resources borrowed from World Bank and the rest by governors, by federal minister and the rest. We noticed what happened last time when we were trying to flow Nigeria aid. And what happened to this money allocated to this? These are the area of wastage must be cut to ensure that we get value for money. And that's why we can see where we are really starting to grow. But without that, all the borrowing will continue to go to private pocket, and Nigeria will be worse for it.
All right, moving on. Now, the Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation (NDIC) has shown its weight behind the proposed recapitalization of banks, saying that the country needs bigger banks to achieve the vision of a $1 trillion economy. What are your thoughts?
My thought on the capitalization of banks is that the new CBN governor or the people in power just want to have a fanciful words so to describe capitalization. In 2005, Shasulu, the governor, now the governor of Second Bank, who was Anambra, who was founder of the bank then, ordered the bank to move their capitalization from 2 billion to 5 billion. And since then, since the end of capital reformation in 2005, a lot of banks have moved their asset far beyond that level. Most banks in the country today are already operating far above 25 billion minimum capitalization to play the back there. So in short, but I'm not sure if that is the problem of the banking sector today. And most of the bank owners and management and boards are realizing that for them to play in the big ticket, they need to have enough capital base to strengthen their operations and to be able to play in the system. So I'm not sure we should embark on another round of compulsory mandatory capitalization. What the government should look at is that what are the banks doing right now and what can they do to enhance their position in Africa and West Africa and the global world. And that's what they need to look at it. Not for people just to go to the market and scramble to the market. It's cheap to maybe I'm seen as a way of maybe people not trying to buy into the bank system or take position in the bank system, and by stampeding bank to now start raising money in the process. Some people now get into the system because they are empowered, they are politicians, and trying to acquire some banks through the back door. I think for me that's the way I look at it. It's not the way to go. But yes, I agree that the banks need more capitalization, but that's not the way to go. We can't go back the way Tinubu did it in last time. It was fraught with a lot of fraud as well.
All right. Well, talking about the new note and old Naira note, the CBN has come out to say we can continue to spend the new note and old Naira note together, and also the government and Supreme Court. But it seems like there's an issue going on somewhere, because the fact that they keep coming out to put out these directives, and it looks like there's something there we don't really know. What's your take on that?
Yeah, what actually happened was that the Supreme Court, don't forget that around March or so, the Supreme Court ruled that the old note validity should be extended to the 31st December of this year. That was the ruling of the Supreme Court then. And of course, we haven't realized that the CBN does not have capacity to actually bring out more of the new design note. They have to go back to the federal government, to go back to the Supreme Court to ask for extension of that rule or ruling order, which is Supreme Court have actually done. And what CBN have just done is just to validate the position of the Supreme Court on that issue. And what we are seeing today is that happily showed the Naira design was a disaster, was a political tools, and was not well thought out. Because if there is one well thought out, then we should have been able to stabilize by now and have enough of those new notes in circulation for us to be able to jettison the old note. But when we see today, the bulk of the currency circulating today is the old note. If you are getting 100,000 today, how you can find about 10,000 of new notes in that money? That is an indication that we don't have the capacity to print new notes. We don't have capacity to probably circulate enough new note that will reach everybody in this country. And if you have to go by the deadline of 31st December, we'll go back to what we've witnessed before the March ruling by the Supreme Court. And I think that's what the city had to do to actually say, we can spend this money as long as we what other client did was that they allowed the two countries to go in pari passu in the circulation until they are able to mock up the old note and be able to saturate the system with the new note. That's what they do in that line. And I think that's what CBN should do to ensure that we have stability in the system.
All right, moving on. Now, the federal government has apologized to core members following the deplorable conditions of NYSC camps. What are your thoughts on this matter?
It's so unfortunate, really. Unfortunately, how many years have they been running the youth service? Over let's say close to 50 years now, in the 70s, 73 or 72 or thereafter, and close to probably 50 something years old. And here we are still having some of this minute problem. What is in a camp? What do they need in a camp, for example? A camp bed, a bunk bed, and a facility that could work, that could provide covering for corps member, and the facility to actually encourage them to carry out that assignment in that camp. And when it comes to do that, unfortunately, like I said earlier too, when we were discussing the budget, is that we in this country we don't have value for money. Corruption is everywhere. And if you see what is going on, even right from the kitchen, for example, when coppers were served some unpalatable food, those who are in charge of the food are taking raw food home at the end of the orientation, and money are going to private empty pockets in so many things. Money that are meant for specific area of the government, people are taking it as stealing, and not, nothing is being done against them. That's the problem we have today in this country. We need to really be sure that we want a nation that works, and we want a nation that works. Every hand must be on deck to ensure that we minimize corruption in the system in such a way that can get value for money, whatever we are allocating money for, we are getting result for it. That's why we are getting those deplorable structure that over time we have allocated money for repair, for rehabilitation, rehabilitation, yet we're not getting result for that. Because the person will collect money and will not do any work and run away with money and nothing happened to them. So we are the president Bola Tinubu has a lot of work on his hand. Unfortunately, I have a doubt if he can really match up to the desire or the expectations in that aspect, because I don't know. The system is so ravaged by corruption that it takes a determined person who really want to make an impact and change and leave legacy to actually embark on major reform to really consume some of the corruption.
All right, let's take a look at Mr. and Mrs. before we go. And Mrs. is speaking this morning. She says that's what men are good at. When they make money, their mistresses enjoy the bulk while their wives get the short end of the stick. And Mr. responds and says, if you take it easy, you don't have any business with sticks. I will give you a pole.
The man saying the truth now. Who wants the money? Who wants the husband? Who wants the money? She actually is in charge of everything in the home. Why can't you just see that the side chick that got the bulk of the money? But the truth is that the bankers that help to accentuate the conversation in marriage that need to be going on and people to learn from it. I'm sure, I hope the young ones are actually reading those cartoons to actually get some little minor issues that crop up in homes, and to help them to actually set their mind to what they are expecting in home and actually to plan their home very well. That's the work Mr. and Mrs. is doing, and they are doing a good job of it.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Oludari Mayowa, publisher of Global Financial Digest. Thank you for sharing your talk with us this morning.
Thank you very much, and have a lovely day. And regards to everyone in the studio.
Likewise. Also, remember that you can equally like, share, and subscribe on all our social media platforms showing on your screen. To find out up-to-date stories, go to our website www.vanguardindia.com to find out more. I am Precious Chukudi, and thank you for watching.